man, I forget what class it is, but one of them, if you curse, you have to drink, which is like a kind of standard like drinking game mechanic. And man, Travis kept calling people out on that. I had to drink so much because he kept like, you cursed, you know, you gotta drink.
Welcome to Above the Table, your new favorite home for tabletop and fantasy news. I am Christian Hoffer, and today I am here to talk about the new tabletop RPG, Drunkards, Druggies, and Delinquents, and I am joined by Chris P. of Titmouse Animation. So, Chris, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good.
Great. Well, so my first question, obviously, is why is an animation studio like Titmouse getting into the tabletop RPG business?
Well, you know, I've always played, tabletop RPGs, and, you know, I dig it. We make a lot of shows that are in that space. Obviously, you know, Vox Machina and a bunch of other stuff. And, you know, always have a gaming group with a bunch of people where we play, you know, whatever game, you know, we're feeling is the good one to play at any given time. And the inception of this, Drunkards, Druggies, and Delinquents came about when we usually do a client gift every year. And last year we did one. I was like, let's do like a kind of like a weirdo DM screen. But then we're like, we got to put something on it. And we started like Alexei, who's our creative director. We were like, well, maybe we could make an actual game, but we wanted it to be, we send out this gift. We used to do it for the holidays, but we always miss it. So we do it for 420. So, you know, we've done things like a dugout or like a wake and bake mug or different things that have to like drug paraphernalia usually. So we're like, let's do something that dives into like vices. So we made it where it's like about, you know, all the monsters and the character classes and the items and equipment and the gameplay are all based on, you know, you curse on this one?
Yeah.
They're just based on getting fucked up, right? So, you know, we sent it out kind of as a joke. We didn't really properly play test it. We kind of just thought, like probably nobody will actually play it. They'll just look at it and laugh and think it's cool. And then we did make it though playable. We shipped it with it requires one 12-sided die to play. So people actually played it. And Luke Gygax, Gary Gygax's son who runs GaryCon, was really like, man, he really pushed me. He's like, you should do like a, crowdfunding thing, see if there's enough people. I bet a lot of people will order this and you could make it for real. So then we did a couple of proper play tests. And one of the things we realized, because it was all based on the DM screen, right? And passing the DM screen around, because all the stats, we didn't have any books or any other like items other than a die. And we realized pretty quick, it's like, we got to get this information off of this DM screen and onto something else. And because people were drunk and, usually playing in a pretty dark setting at night or whatever, we decided to do a lot of cards and print all the information really big on the cards. But it gave us the opportunity to do a lot of art for the cards. And we know a lot of cool artists. We've got a lot of, character classes, monsters, items, equipment on these cards. And then if you order the deluxe set, we have a lot of pre-roll characters, which is a pun. That is intended, because they're pre-rolled, but they're also like pre-rolled, characters that you can play. And we got a lot of cool artists. I'm sure we can give you a whole list. Jeremy probably has that info of all the cool artists. And yeah, man, it's like we just got, because some of the art's still rolling in. We just got the first one, I think, on Friday from Errol Otis. So that's cool. One of the OGs.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is, like, I was looking at some of the artists that appeared on Backers Kit, and you've got folks like Pendleton Ward yep. and Matt Fury, Errol Otis, Dave Johnson, Ben Edlund. Like you have like the guy who made the Tick on this. What are some like the weirdest things you've gotten back as a part of this project?
Oh, man, Penn's done some good weird ones. He did a whiskey wizard where the wizard is made of whiskey, like his bottle is like pouring him out and into like his form. So that's pretty cool. I like that one a lot. But we definitely told every artist, I'm like, I'm not going to give you notes. Do whatever weird art you want. So we got some really good ones, some monstrous ones, and it's also open to interpretation because we're still like mixing it up, right? Like we've got basically we're going to print 2 of each character class, right? Those will be the same art on each one in the basic set, but in the deluxe set there'll be 2 pre-rolls of each character class. So there'll essentially be 3 pieces of art for each character class. And what's going to be a fun thing, I think we might do a live stream for this. We'll see. This will be a scoop for you if we do it, where we pre-roll some of the characters on a live stream, and we're going to kind of base them on the art. So we'll look at the art and be like, okay, let's start, like, what could this character's name be? Maybe we'll take some suggestions from the chat. We'll roll some stuff up. I think it'll be fun.
So so let's talk about the actual game mechanics. How does this thing actually work?
It's really, really simple. And, it's funny, when I initially conceived it, I thought it was pretty much just going to be a combat game, like a murder hobo combat game, right? Where it's just like it's really kind of like somewhere between a drinking game and a standard RPG, because you get the screen, like the person who starts with the screen, there's an adventure log, and then there's everybody's characters who you can either roll in a session 0, or you can take one of these pre-gens. If you get the deluxe set, then you're off to the races, right? So on the adventure log, you start with a certain, I think a drug bear is the first one that shows up, at auto, like first round, right? And you just go right into combat out of the gate. And then what happens is monsters attack first, then characters, but then the DM screen moves and everybody gets to be the DM, the drunken master in this game, and roll and run the characters, right? And you roll for new monsters each time. So your monster list can keep growing and growing of your enemies, or if you kill them, you do a cheers if you kill them, by the way, if you clear the board and kill all the monsters. But in that way, I think a lot of people who've never played RPGs before, it was an easy entry point, because it almost feels more like a standard like tabletop game without the RPG. But here's the thing that happened in the playtesting that surprised me. People really got into the RP. Like, I thought it was just going to be a like you slash and kill and fight, but like people had a lot of fun creating their characters, getting into the roles, and it became a lot more RP than I thought. And one of the things we're considering, this is another scoop, because as we're kind of learning, because we've even been playing it, as the backer kit campaign has been going, is we might do some really slim like modules, like a scenario in which you could start, because we've kind of left it up to like a real OG style of RPG, where it's like, hey, it's up to you and your imagination, but we're like, hey, maybe we could have a little bit of a premise, a little bit of a Kickstarter, have a little bit of a place to start your RPG, your role play gameplay, so that everybody's on the same page, they can get with the same premise. Because otherwise it's kind of just a default, like you're in a dungeon. It's just a dungeon crawl. So maybe we'll start something like, hey, here's a scenario you could start in if you want, instead of a dungeon.
So let's see here, what else? Have you ever, you have a bunch of clients, obviously, a lot of your the stuff you animate are, it's tied to at least it's let's say friendly to alternative culture. I think let's go with that. You got like Beavis and Butthead and Big Mouth and Vox Machina and all this stuff. Did you talk to any of them about doing any crossovers?
Not a crossover, so to speak. Travis Willingham from Vox, he was involved in the play testing. He was a lot of fun. It's funny. Actually, the play testing did reveal, we didn't have this mechanic before the play testing. We had only ways to drink, and then when we started to do the play testing, it's like, especially when you're on camera and you're like trying to shoot this, for possible ingestion by somebody on YouTube or something, people were like, hey, do I have to drink? And it's like, hey, I bet there's going to be people in every table who don't want to drink. So we've come up with a sober mechanic for it too, where you can kind of choose your way to take your sips or your hits or whatever, whether it be, eating jalapeno peppers or hot sauce or like apple cider vinegar or doing push-ups or whatever it is that you feel like you can contribute and have some kind of like way to take your punishment without it being a substance that alters your consciousness. So that's fun.
Well, that kind of ties into that was another question I was going to ask is, like obviously, this is very much a drinking type game and a party game and things like that. One of the things that I saw, when this first got announced and when it first hit backer kit was, like, so only people who can, drink or smoke or things. And it's very clear that you purposefully, wanted to make this all inclusive so that you didn't need to drink in order to have a good time with this game.
Yeah, it's true. You can do whatever you want. And we're going to leave that I'm a huge like embracer in general of rule 0 across every game. So that's kind of going to be like heavily outlined in the game too. Like, hey, these slim rules are for you to be like as a starting point. And then you at your table make up whatever you want. That's the rules, is make up whatever rules you want, basically, and there'll be a good starting point and a solid, I think a foundation, and as a lifelong RPG guy, I think we got a good handle on how these games work. Actually, the biggest mechanic that we changed from the early playtests is we did initially have your character be able to take damage, right, and be able to be killed, right? But we ended up ditching that because basically the mechanic was you had a certain amount of health, right? And then as you were attacked, you could decide your armor class and hit points were kind of the same thing, right? So it's like, let's say you have 12, right? And you get hit for, somebody rolls a 15 to hit you. You can either take 3 damage and that will reduce your armor class. So it's like it's like Torchbearer or something where you kind of got shittier and shittier.
Okay, yeah.
So you could take all 3 and have your damage reduced, or you could drink, right, and not take damage. What we found was the taking damage was kind of like a false thing. Like nobody ever did it, because the kind of purpose was to get drunk. And then we're like, what do we want? And then it's like, what is the game? Because it's basically designed to be a one-shot style game. I mean, we'll see. Maybe people embrace it and they'll do longer campaigns. But it's like you don't really want the characters to die. So really, the gag, and I think what works in it is like play until you tap out, play until you're drunk enough, and then that's your stopping point. So that is a newer mechanic that we shifted away from being able to die to just like getting too fucked up.
So you mentioned Vox Machina. This is a tabletop RPG channel. We cover Critical Role. I have to ask, was there anything in the game that was inspired by what you've animated or drawn in Vox Machina? Or I know you're a big Critical Role fan, so
yeah. I mean, we try to keep it, we want to respect their brand and our brand. They've been very gracious and putting our backer kit in their newsletter and on their social and stuff. So it also coincided really coincidentally with the launch of season 3. So there's been a lot of hype back and forth, but we, try to keep the worlds, other than it being a general, kind of fantasy RPG world, like, Critical Role has its universe. And it takes place in, generating from the inception point of, Matt Mercer's DM style, but then embraced and kind of like grown by all the members of the table. Whereas this is a little bit different. This is a little bit more kind of old school stoner drinky thing. And while those elements exist in Critical Role 4, fucking sure. I mean, across the board with all the characters, this one, is not directly inspired by any Critical Role stuff, but who knows? Maybe a crossover in the future. The one thing I could say from a real world item, one of the magical items is the Sandal of Gygax, which is an actual item. So that exists in the real world as an arcane item. That's the only thing I think that's like a direct one-to-one with something else that exists in another. I mean, I guess that's somewhere between a fantasy world and a real world.
What does the Sandal of Gygax do in this game?
Man, you'd think I'd have that at the top of my head. I'll have to go look. I'll have to look it up. I'll get you that.
Okay.
Info. Yeah.
I
didn't think to have the rules in front of me.
Why would you need those? I have one more Vox Machina question, and then I have a couple more game questions to ask. What was, out of curiosity, what was the wildest thing that you animated in season 3? Like, what was like a particular scene that you like saw and were just like, oh my god, this is the thing that I want. I can't wait to see.
It might surprise you, right? And I got to think, where are we in the season?
They've aired the first 6 episodes.
Yeah. So the thing that I think, it's not what you think it's going to be. It is the thing that we knew the fans would really be into, which was the various coming together with the various romantic interests and their I don't want people should watch those episodes. I don't want to say what happens, but you get some reward if you were fans of the stream and you wanted to see how these various romantic they finally pay off in some way.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, the bathtub scene. No context needed there. All right, so going back to Drunkards, Druggies, and Delinquents. What's your favorite class to play as?
Oh man, it's funny because we did this intentionally. That there's because we really wanted to be a joke. There is a beer-barian, but there's also a barbarian. They're both of the beer class, and then there's a bourbon-barian under the booze affinity, and then there's a blaze-barian under the weed affinity. So I'd say one of the barians. There's a lot of different kinds, or beerians, depending on how you do. It is good to think about. That's one thing I got to say. When people are used to playing in a streaming game and keeping each other honest, that's why we printed these things on the cards, because it's important to have. There's a special. For eeach class, there's a special thing that could be interpreted as a weakness or a strength, depending on what it is. And when we were doing the playtest, we would always forget to incorporate those. And man, I forget what class it is, but one of them, if you curse, you have to drink, which is like a kind of standard like drinking game mechanic. And man, Travis kept calling people out on that. I had to drink so much because he kept like, you cursed, you got to drink.
So if this takes off, are there, like I said, I know you're a big tabletop RPG fan. I've seen you at GaryCon. Do you have any more ideas for making more tabletop RPGs beyond this?
Maybe. I mean, we certainly expand this for sure. I think there are many ways to do it with monsters and classes, and we're already, I think, we're also I'm giving you a bunch of scoops. I think we're gonna probably do a GaryCon exclusive, either a monster or character class card. We've been working on that. So we're gonna have a booth at GaryCon. So we'll have almost certainly won't have, depending on the printing, the fully delivered thing, but we'll have like a prototype, and we'll be running at least one session there. But I think we'll have a stack of that particular card, you could buy at GaryCon as an exclusive. And it'll be real cheap because it'll only be one card. Or maybe we'll do a little set of them, but it'll probably be one.
Okay, well, so Drunkards, Druggies, and Delinquents, that's out on BackerKit now. It's already reached its funding goal, so you don't have any worries about, whether or not this thing is going to hit. Be sure to check it out today. You can find the link in our comment section. Thank you so much for coming on the channel, Chris. We really appreciate it.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, well, until next time, be sure to like and subscribe the video, leave comments, do all that cool stuff. Be sure to share this far and wide. And until next time, thank you so much for watching Above the Table.